I still remember the night everything broke, and I still remember the sound of my own breath shaking, as if my chest didn't know how to hold air anymore. My name is Elise, and this is the part of my life I never told anyone out loud. I thought I had already survived enough storms, but nothing prepared me for the moment his midlife crisis didn't take him away from me slowly. It ripped him from my hands in one single moment. I'm telling this now because silence hurts more than truth, and because maybe speaking it will finally let me breathe again. I was standing in the doorway when I saw him packing. No warning, no fight, no reason that made any kind of sense. Only the strange calmness in his movements, like a man who had already rehearsed that goodbye 1,000 times. His hands were steady. Mine were not. My voice trembled when I asked where he was going, but he didn't look at me. He just zipped the suitcase and whispered something about needing to feel alive. That was the moment I realized he wasn't leaving because of me. He was leaving because of himself, and because of her. He didn't even say her name. He didn't have to. The distance between us had been growing for months, but I kept pretending it was just work, stress, something we could fix with time. But the truth was already inside his eyes, eyes that used to search for me, now searching for someone else. Or maybe for a version of himself he thought he lost. I stepped closer, thinking if I touched his arm he would wake up from whatever dream he was trapped in. But he stepped back. That single movement cut deeper than any words he could have said. I told him we could talk, that whatever he was feeling didn't have to destroy us. He didn't answer. He just looked at me like he was trying to memorize my face for the last time. The silence between us felt like a door closing, and I felt small, like the girl I used to be before I learned how to love him. I wanted to scream. I wanted to shake him. I wanted to remind him of everything we built, but I couldn't move. I froze, watching the man I loved choose a different life that didn't include me. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft, as if softness could make the wound hurt less. He said he didn't plan to hurt me. He said it wasn't my fault. Said he just wanted to feel young again, and she made him feel that way. I felt something inside me collapse. I didn't ask who she was. I didn't want to know. Knowing would make it real, and I wasn't ready to face reality yet. My hands were shaking, but I still tried to smile because I didn't know what else to do. I didn't know how to exist in a world where he wasn't mine anymore. He walked past me with the suitcase. The sound of the wheels rolling on the floor will forever stay in my memory. I didn't follow him. I didn't beg. I didn't collapse to the ground even though my legs wanted to. I just stood there hugging myself, trying to hold all the pieces of me together. When the door closed behind him, the silence felt like a scream. I stayed standing long after he left, like my body refused to accept he was really gone. Later that night, I found his wedding ring on the kitchen table. He didn't have the courage to hand it to me. He left it like a final message, cold and heavy on the wood. I picked it up and pressed it against my chest. It hurt, but I needed something to hold on to. Something that proved our life had been real. Tears finally came, slow at first, then unstoppable. I cried until my throat burned and my body felt empty. But even then, I kept whispering his name like a prayer that would never be answered again. The next morning, his side of the bed was untouched, cold, bigger than it ever felt before. I sat there, looking at the pillow where his head used to rest, and a memory hit me, him brushing my hair out of my eyes, calling me my constant. I had been his anchor, his home, the one who believed in him even when he didn't believe in himself. And now I wasn't enough. Not for the man he had become. Not for the version of him chasing youth through someone else's arms. People always say heartbreak is a slow ache, but mine wasn't. It was sharp, sudden, like glass inside my chest. I tried to distract myself, but every room in the house whispered him. His jacket on the chair, his mug on the counter, his cologne on the closet door. I walked through those memories as if walking through ruins, touching things that no longer belonged to me, trying to understand the moment love transformed into absence. I kept imagining him with her, laughing, smiling, feeling something he thought he lost with time. Maybe she reminded him of the man he used to be. Or maybe she was just new, and new can feel like magic when you're trying to outrun yourself. I hated myself for imagining it, but my mind kept replaying scenes I had never seen. My heart became a battlefield between what I wanted to forget and what I feared was true. That afternoon, I tried calling him once. Only once. The call didn't even ring, it went straight to voicemail. That was when I understood he wasn't coming back that night. Or the next. Or maybe ever. I sat on the floor with the phone in my hand, listening to my own breath echo in the empty room. I felt like a ghost inside my own life. And yet, a small part of me still hoped he would walk through the door, say it was a mistake, fall into my arms and choose me again. But hope can be cruel when it refuses to let go. It wasn't until I opened the window that I realized how quiet the world outside was. The sky looked too calm for the storm inside me. People walked by as if nothing had changed, as if my life hadn't just cracked open. I wondered how long it would take for the pieces of me to stop hurting. But at that moment, all I could think about was him. Him and the path he chose without looking back. And that was when I noticed something on the sidewalk that made my breath catch: his favorite car passing by, the one he said he would never sell. It slowed down near the corner, and through the glass I saw a silhouette sitting beside him. I froze. My heart stopped, because even from a distance, I knew it was her. I stood frozen by the window, my hands gripping the frame as if the wood could anchor me, keep me from falling apart. The car didn't stop. It simply slowed, like a quiet reminder that my place in his life had been replaced. The silhouette beside him leaned slightly toward him, and even though I couldn't see her face, I saw enough. The tilt of her head, the way she sat close, closer than I had been to him in months. My chest tightened until it hurt to breathe. I watched the car vanish at the end of the street, carrying away the man I once believed would grow old with me. When the car disappeared, the world stayed still, but something inside me shifted. The kind of shift that doesn't make a sound but changes everything. I pressed my forehead against the cold glass, trying to calm the tremor in my arms. I didn't recognize the version of me standing there. I used to be strong, grounded, sure. Now I felt like a stranger inside my own skin. But I stayed there anyway, watching an empty street, as if staring long enough could bring him back. Eventually, I stepped away from the window. My legs felt weak, like they belonged to someone else. I walked back into the living room, and everything looked wrong. Too big, too quiet, too full of memories that no longer belonged to both of us. I touched the back of the couch where he used to sit, the fabric worn from years of ordinary moments that felt priceless now. I didn't want to cry again, but the tears found their way, silent and hot, falling before I could stop them. I sat on the couch and hugged my knees, feeling the emptiness wrap around me like a heavy blanket. I remembered the last time he had laughed with me months ago, before the distance grew sharp, before he started staying out late, before he began choosing silence instead of conversations. At the time, I convinced myself it was temporary. People change. Love evolves. We just needed time. But now I realized I was the only one fighting for something he had already let go. The house echoed with the loneliness I wasn't ready for. I walked to the kitchen again and looked at the ring he'd left behind. I picked it up, rolling the metal between my fingers, and whispered, "Why wasn't I enough?" The question slipped out before I could stop it, and hearing my own voice made me crumble all over again. I placed the ring on my palm and closed my hand around it, letting the cold metal press into my skin. I wanted the pain. I needed it to feel real. As the hours passed, the light outside dimmed, and shadows filled the house. I turned on the lamps, but even the warm glow felt hollow. I tried making tea, but my hands shook too much. I tried sitting still, but my thoughts were loud. I walked in circles, touching things just to stay grounded. At some point, I found myself in the bedroom again, staring at the closet. His clothes still hung there, untouched, smelling like him. I pressed my face into one of his shirts, desperate for something familiar, something that wasn't leaving me. A sudden knock on the door made my heart jump. For a second, hope rushed through me so fast it hurt. I wiped my face, smoothed my hair, and ran to the door. maybe he regretted leaving. Maybe he realized what he was losing. Maybe he still loved me enough to come back. I opened the door with hands trembling from the weight of all those maybes. But it wasn't him. It was his sister, standing there with a soft expression and the kind of sadness that comes from knowing more than you can say. She stepped inside without speaking, wrapping her arms around me the moment the door closed. I sank into her embrace, letting myself break silently. She didn't ask questions. She didn't try to fix anything. She just held me, and for a moment, that was enough. When I finally pulled away, she looked at me with a hesitation that made my stomach twist. She touched my arm gently and whispered, "Elise, you should know something." Her voice cracked on the last word, and my heart began to pound. She looked toward the floor, as if searching for courage, then back into my eyes with a kind of apology inside her gaze. Before I could ask what she meant, she took a deep breath and said the one sentence that made everything inside me collapse all over again. She held my hand so tightly it felt like she was trying to keep me from falling apart again. But her eyes told me the truth was heavier than anything I had faced so far. Her lips trembled before she spoke, and in that tiny hesitation, I already felt the floor tilt under my feet. When the words finally came, they were soft, but they cut deeper than any scream. He didn't leave on impulse, Elise. He's been seeing her for months. I felt my breath stop midair. My heart didn't break. It dropped, sharp and sudden, like something fragile slipping from my fingers. I stepped back, needing space, needing air, needing anything that didn't hurt. My chest tightened as if invisible hands were pressing against me. I shook my head slowly, trying to reject the truth forming around me. Months, not days. Not a mistake. Not a one-time confusion he regretted. Months. That meant every quiet dinner, every distant hug, every late night he claimed he needed time alone was not emptiness. It was betrayal, painted carefully between the lines of our everyday life. Grace. I felt dizzy, gripping the edge of the table to steady myself. My voice cracked when I whispered, "Why didn't he tell me?" She lowered her eyes, unable to meet mine, and in her silence I found my answer. I walked away from her gently, needing the distance to breathe, but my legs felt like they belonged to someone else. I sat on the couch again, the same place where just hours before I had felt the first sting of his absence. Now the sting burned. She sat beside me with slow steps, giving me time, as if afraid her closeness might shatter me completely. I wiped my face, trying to clear the fog in my thoughts, but every memory rearranged itself with painful clarity. Every moment I thought he was tired, he was simply slipping away. Toward her, I remembered the days he would come home smelling of a perfume that wasn't mine. But I believed him when he said it was from the office. I remembered how he suddenly became protective of his phone, how he changed his lock screen, how he stopped asking about my day. I remembered the way he used to love me, and the way he slowly forgot how to. It all made sense now, but understanding didn't soften the blow. It made it worse. Because the truth wasn't sudden. It was slow and steady, a quiet unraveling I didn't see coming until the threads snapped in my hands. His sister touched my shoulder gently, as if grounding me. "I wanted to tell you sooner," she whispered. But I hoped he would come to his senses. I looked at her with tears blurring my vision. I didn't blame her. I didn't blame anyone except the man who promised me forever and then handed it to someone else. I leaned back against the couch, closing my eyes as a wave of memories washed over me. Our wedding day, our first apartment, the trips, the laughs, the nights he held me close. All of it felt like borrowed time, moments that belonged to a version of him that no longer existed. When I opened my eyes again, she was watching me with the kind of compassion that made my throat tighten. "He thinks she makes him feel young again," she said quietly, almost apologetically. "He told me he's terrified of getting old, and she gives him something he thinks he lost." I felt a mix of sadness and disbelief twist inside me. I wanted to be angry at him, but all I felt was a heavy ache, a grief for the man I loved, not the man he was now. The man he was now didn't choose me, didn't stay, didn't fight. He only ran toward the shallow promise of youth. I walked to the bedroom like someone drifting through a dream, each step echoing in my ears. I opened the closet again, staring at his side, the empty hangers where a few of his shirts used to be. I didn't touch them this time. I just looked. And in that quiet moment, something inside me cracked. Not like breaking glass, but like a door slowly giving way after years of pressure. I wasn't angry at her, I didn't even know her. I was hurt by him, by the way he stopped choosing me. Piece by piece, day after day, until the only thing left for him to do was walk out the door. When I returned to the living room, his sister stood up as if ready to catch me if I fell. I forced a small, broken smile, the kind that tries to hide a wound too deep to cover. She opened her mouth to speak, but I gently shook my head. "I don't want details," I whispered. "Not yet." She nodded, respecting my space, my pain, my need to breathe without drowning in more truths. She hugged me once more before leaving, and when the door closed behind her, I felt truly alone for the first time. I wandered the house again, but now everything felt sharper, like the edges of my memories were cutting me from the inside. I sat on our bed and let the silence fill the room. And then, for reasons I couldn't explain, I opened the nightstand drawer. Inside, beneath some old letters and receipts, I found something I hadn't seen in months, a small notebook he used to write in when we first started dating. Poems, ideas, promises. I opened it slowly, afraid of the memories trapped inside. The first page I turned to stopped my heart cold. There, written in his familiar handwriting, was a note dated only a few weeks ago. A note that wasn't meant for me. My fingers trembled as I held the notebook, the edges soft from years of being touched by hands that once belonged to me. I stared at the date written in the corner just a few weeks ago, a time when I still believed he and I were only going through a rough phase. A time when I still waited for him to come home early, still held on to every little sign that things could get better. I swallowed hard and turned the page fully, bracing myself without knowing for what. The words were simple, too simple. A short note, written in his rushed handwriting. Messy, familiar, intimate. I read it once, then again, slower this time, letting each word fall into place like stones sinking inside me. "I feel alive when I'm with you. Don't give up on me. Not for me. Not written to me. But written for her, the woman who stood on the other side of the life he chose." My knees weakened as if the weight of that sentence was enough to push me down. I sat on the edge of the bed, notebook still open in my shaking hands. My mind tried to make sense of it, to deny it, to rewrite the truth into something less painful, but the ink on that page didn't lie. He had given his heart to her long before he packed the suitcase, long before he walked out the door, long before I realized I was already living in the after of us. I pressed the notebook against my chest, as if holding it tightly could somehow force the pain into silence. My breath quivered, uneven and shallow. I wasn't angry at that moment. Anger felt too sharp, too far away. What I felt was something softer, heavier, like grief. Grief for the love I had given freely. Grief for the years we had built together. Grief for the version of him I had lost before I even knew he was gone. I placed the notebook on the bed gently, as though the past needed to be handled with care. I stood and walked toward the mirror on the wall, the same mirror where I had once gotten ready for our dates, where I had laughed at myself trying on clothes, where he had hugged me from behind, calling me beautiful even when I didn't believe it. Now the reflection staring back at me looked unfamiliar. My eyes were red, my cheeks flushed, my hair messy from running my fingers through it too many times. I studied myself, wondering how he could look at this face, this life, and decide he needed something else. I whispered to my reflection, "Why wasn't I enough?" My voice sounded fragile, like a secret breaking in the shape of a question. But even as the words left my lips, I felt a strange shift inside me. A flicker of something small but new, not strength, not yet, more like awakening. A realization that his choices weren't a reflection of my worth. They were a reflection of his fear, his confusion, his need to rewrite his own life at the cost of mine. I turned away from the mirror, unable to bear the sight of a woman breaking in slow motion. I walked back to the nightstand and returned the notebook to its place, burying it beneath old memories so I wouldn't have to see it again. But the words were carved in my mind, already sharp, unforgettable, and painful. I sat on the bed again, rubbing my palms over my face, trying to settle the whirlwind inside me. The silence in the bedroom felt different now, heavier, but also somehow clearer. I could finally see the truth. He didn't leave because I failed. He left because he couldn't face his own aging, his own doubts, his own fading sense of identity. And she was just the escape route he chose. That realization hurt, but it also softened the edges of my grief, turning it into something almost bearable. Almost. As the night deepened, exhaustion settled into my bones, but sleep felt impossible. I walked into the hallway, the air cooler there, the shadows stretching long across the floor. I touched the walls as I passed, remembering how many times we had walked down this corridor together, laughing, arguing softly, holding hands, existing in a world that felt safe. Now the walls felt foreign, the memories distant, as if belonging to someone else. When I reached the kitchen, I noticed something I hadn't seen earlier. His favorite jacket draped over the back of a chair. He must have forgotten it when he rushed out. I picked it up, the fabric soft and warm from the afternoon sun. It smelled like him, like the man I used to know. I pressed it to my face, and for a moment, I let myself fall into the scent, the familiarity, the echo of a love that once held me like a promise. Then a sound broke the silence, a soft buzz. My phone vibrating on the table. My heart jumped. It's not with hope. Hope felt dangerous now, but with something more cautious, more fragile. I picked up the phone slowly, afraid of what I might see. The screen lit up, bright in the dim kitchen. It wasn't him. It was an unknown number. The message preview read only 4 words. Words that made the blood rush out of my face and sent a cold shiver down my spine. We need to talk. Now. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding so loudly it felt like I could hear it in my throat. We need to talk. Now. The message glowed like a warning, like a door I wasn't sure I wanted to open. My hands tightened around the phone, and for a moment I considered ignoring it. After everything I had lived in the last hours, the last thing I needed was another truth sneaking into my life uninvited. But something inside me, curiosity, fear, instinct, pushed me to swipe the notification open. The number wasn't saved. No name appeared, just the message, sitting there, waiting. I typed slowly, unsure. Who is this? My fingers hovered before pressing send, as if hesitation could protect me from whatever would come next. The response came almost instantly, faster than I expected. It's about him. My stomach tightened. I felt the room darken, or maybe it was just my thoughts pulling the light away. I leaned against the counter, my knees trembling again, the same way they had when I found the note in his notebook. I typed back, my breath shaky. What do you want? Another pause, short but heavy. Then the reply appeared. You deserve to know the truth. A chill ran through me. The truth. It seemed like every hour revealed a new piece of hint pieces I hadn't asked for. Pieces that hurt. Pieces I didn't know how to hold. I felt like I was drowning in stories he chose to live without me. I swallowed hard and typed again. Who are you? This time the answer came slower, as if the person on the other side needed courage. I'm someone he lied to, too. My breath caught. I read the sentence again, slower. Someone he lied to, too. A woman. It had to be. My mind raced with possibilities. Maybe another friend of hers. Maybe someone he promised something to. Maybe someone caught in the same storm he had created. But I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I had already fallen too many times today. Before I could ask more, another message arrived. Can you meet me? It's important. I didn't know what to say. Meeting a stranger on a night like this felt reckless. but ignoring the message felt even worse. If this person knew something, if she was hurt too, maybe I wasn't as alone as I felt. But the thought of stepping out of the house made the air feel too heavy to breathe. I typed slowly, "I don't know if I can." The reply came with a kind of desperation I recognized. "Please, I'm not here to hurt you. I just need to talk to the one person who might understand." I closed my eyes, letting the words sink in. I thought of his sister, the look on her face, the truth she had delivered that had cracked another piece of my heart. I wasn't sure how much more truth I could take, but I was tired of being in the dark. I exhaled slowly and typed back, "Where?" The answer came with an address close by, only a few blocks away. A small cafe I had passed many times but never visited. I looked at the clock. It was late, the kind of late where the streets went quiet and the world felt softer. I hesitated, but something inside me pushed forward. Maybe it was the need to understand. Maybe it was the need to feel less alone. Maybe it was just the simple fact that I couldn't sit in that house another minute, staring at memories that weren't mine anymore. I put on a sweater, grabbed my bag, and walked toward the door. For a moment, I stopped and looked back at the house, our house. The lights cast familiar shapes on the walls, the furniture sat where we once placed it together, but everything felt distant now, like a museum to a life that had ended quietly, without ceremony. I stepped outside, closing the door gently behind me, as if afraid the sound might break something that was already fragile. The air outside was cold, brushing against my skin like a reminder that the world kept turning even when my own life felt frozen. I walked down the street slowly, watching the quiet houses, the distant lights, the stillness of the night. With every step, the address on my phone grew closer. My thoughts tangled between fear and curiosity, but I kept walking, one step after another. The cafe came into view, its warm lights still on despite the late hour. The windows glowed softly, revealing empty chairs and the faint sound of a coffee machine humming inside. As I approached, I saw a woman sitting alone at a corner table. Dark coat, nervous hands, eyes glued to the door as if she'd been waiting for me. I stopped outside the window, staring at her through the glass. Her posture told me everything. She was shaken too. She was hurting too. She wasn't the woman from the car. I knew that immediately. This wasn't the girl who made him feel young. This was someone carrying a different kind of pain. Before I could gather my courage to walk inside, she looked up. Our eyes met through the window. She froze, and then her lips parted in shock as if she recognized me. When our eyes met through the glass, something inside me shifted. She looked startled, truly startled, as if the sight of me wasn't just unexpected but painful. For a moment we simply stared at each other, two strangers sharing a silence heavy with stories we didn't yet understand. I hesitated with my hand on the door, unsure if I should turn away or step inside. But then she stood up slowly, as if gathering courage, and gave me a small, hesitant nod. I pushed the door open, and the soft bell above it chimed, breaking the quiet. Her eyes followed me as I walked toward the table. Up close she looked younger than me, but not by much. Not enough to be her, the woman from the car. She carried a different sadness, one that didn't try to hide behind makeup or confidence. Her fingers were intertwined tightly on the table, her knuckles pale from pressure. I sat across from her, my heart beating faster than I wanted to admit. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. The silence felt thick, almost suffocating. Finally, she inhaled deeply, her voice trembling slightly when she spoke. "You're Elise, right?" I nodded slowly, unsure how she knew my name. She nodded back as though she had just confirmed something she wasn't ready to face. Her eyes glistened with a kind of empathy I wasn't prepared for. I shifted in my seat, my voice weak when I asked, "How do you know who I am?" She looked down, rubbing her thumb against her palm nervously. "Because he told me about you." The air between us tightened, a cold shiver ran down my arms. I leaned back slightly, needing space, needing clarity. I whispered, "Who are you?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she opened her purse with shaky hands and pulled out a small envelope creased at the edges, worn from being held too many times. She placed it on the table gently, almost reverently, as if the paper carried a truth she wasn't sure she had the right to touch. "My name is Mara," she said softly. "And I wasn't supposed to be part of any of this." I didn't know whether to breathe a sigh of relief or brace myself. Her presence didn't feel threatening, but her words carried weight, like a warning. I whispered again, "What do you mean?" Mara swallowed hard. Her eyes darted toward the window for a moment, then back to me. "I didn't know about you at first," her voice cracked. "When I met him, he told me he was separated." The words hit me like cold water. I felt my throat tighten as I whispered, "Separated?" She nodded, guilt pulling at her expression. "He said he was living alone, that things ended months ago. He said he was just trying to move on from a marriage that didn't work." I gripped the edge of the table, anger and heartbreak swirling together. I let out a shaky breath. "That's not true." Mara nodded again, her eyes filling instantly. I know that now. I swear I didn't want to be part of something like this. When I found out the truth, I confronted him. I told him I wanted nothing to do with lies. That's when he stopped talking to me. For a moment, the world tilted. He hadn't just betrayed me. He had betrayed her too. Pain in her eyes was real, raw, heavy, and unmistakable. It was the pain of someone who had believed in a story that crumbled in her hands. I looked at her closely, noticing the fatigue in her expression, the way her shoulders slumped under a weight she didn't choose to carry. "So why did you message me?" I asked softly. Mara pressed the envelope closer to me with trembling fingers. "Because I found this." She took a slow breath. "And I think you deserve to see it. I think you're the only one who should." I stared at the envelope, fear creeping up my spine. It felt too light for what she claimed it held, yet too heavy for me to lift. I finally whispered, "What is it?" Mara hesitated, her voice barely a breath. "It's the reason he left." My chest tightened, my pulse quickened. With trembling fingers, I slowly reached out and pulled the envelope toward me. The paper felt rough beneath my fingertips, worn by her hands and maybe by his. Mara's voice shook when she whispered, "Just prepare yourself." I looked at her, then back at the envelope. My breath caught, my heart pounded. I opened it slowly, and the very first thing I saw inside made the room spin and the ground disappear beneath my feet. Inside the envelope, there was a single folded sheet of paper. Thin, ordinary, the kind of paper someone would use for a grocery list or a quick reminder. Yet as I held it between my fingers, it felt heavier than anything I had ever carried. My chest tightened with every inch I unfolded, my heartbeat loud and disjointed in my ears. Mara watched me with wide, nervous eyes, her hands clenched together on her lap as if she too feared what I would find. When the paper finally opened fully in my hands, my breath caught in my throat. It wasn't a letter. It wasn't a confession. It wasn't even in his handwriting. It was a medical document. My vision blurred for a moment, and I blinked rapidly, trying to focus. My eyes scanned the lines, picking up bits of information through the fog in my mind. Dates, numbers, doctor names, test results. Then I saw his name printed at the top. Bold, clear, unmistakable. A cold shiver spread through my body. I whispered, barely able to push the words out. "What is this?" Mara exhaled shakily. "I didn't want to be the one to tell you. I didn't even want to know. But he dropped that paper the last time we argued. I took it with me because I knew he wouldn't. I knew he would never give it to you." My hands tightened around the edges of the paper. The lines on the document sharpened as my eyes traveled downward. Then I saw it. The part I wished I hadn't. The part that made my lungs freeze inside my chest. A diagnosis. An illness. A degenerative one. The kind people hide. The kind that scares them more than loneliness, more than truth, more than love. I felt the world around me blur again, but this time the blur came from a different kind of pain, one layered with shock, confusion, and something I didn't even want to name yet. I swallowed hard, my voice barely a whisper. "He never told me." Mara nodded, her eyes shimmering. "He didn't tell me either. Not at first. Found out by accident. That's why I cut things off with him. Not because of the illness, but because he wasn't honest. With me, with you, with himself. She paused, looking down. I think he ran because he was scared. Not of you, not of her, but of this. I stared at the document, my fingers trembling so badly the paper rustled like a fragile wing. I felt a dull ache spreading through my chest, his crises, his distance, the way he looked at himself in the mirror, the way he talked about feeling old, feeling lost, needing to feel alive. It all connected. A puzzle I didn't know I was solving suddenly completed itself in one devastating picture. It wasn't just her. It wasn't just youth. It wasn't just betrayal. He was sick, and he didn't tell me. The pain tore through me in a way I couldn't describe. Betrayal felt sharp. But this felt hollow, deep, echoing through every part of me. I closed my eyes and tried to breathe, but my breaths came out broken, uneven. I wasn't angry, I wasn't sad, I was empty, lost. As if someone had ripped the floor out from under my feet again, just when I thought I couldn't fall any further. Mara reached across the table gently, hesitantly. Elise, I think he pushed you away to protect you. I shook my head. He lied to me. My voice cracked. He left me. He didn't even give me the chance to choose whether I wanted to stay. I could have helped him. I could have. My voice broke entirely this time, dissolving into silence as my throat tightened with unshed tears. Mara leaned back, her eyes full of something soft. He didn't want you to watch him change. He didn't want to be a burden. I flinched at the word, burden. It sounded nothing like the man I loved. And yet, maybe fear had turned him into someone I no longer recognized, he told me. Mara continued quietly. That you were the best thing that ever happened to him. That you deserved a life without this weight. A tear rolled down her cheek. That's why I'm here. Because he didn't leave you for her, not really. He left you for this. My breath hitched. I looked at the paper again, my fingers curling painfully around the edges. And then I saw something I hadn't noticed before. Another name on the document. Not his, mine. Listed as emergency contact primary. A tear slipped down my face before I could stop it. He hadn't erased me from everything, not from what mattered most. But that wasn't what broke me. What broke me was the last line, handwritten at the bottom, in his handwriting this time. A single sentence, ink smudged as if written in a moment of fear or exhaustion. I'm sorry. I don't want you to watch me fall apart. I pressed the paper to my chest, closing my eyes as tears streamed freely. And then Mara whispered something so soft I almost didn't hear it. Elise. There's more you need to know. Something he didn't put in the envelope. I lifted my head, my voice barely a breath. What more? Mara's lips parted slowly, trembling. It's about the woman you saw in the car. My heart froze mid-beat. She leaned forward, her voice almost cracking. Elise, she's not who you think she is. Her words sank into the quiet of the cafe like a stone dropped into still water, sending ripples through everything I thought I knew. I stared at Mara, my hands still gripping the medical document, the edges now slightly wrinkled from the pressure of my fingers. For a moment, I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. The woman in the car had been the image haunting me since the moment I saw her silhouette beside him. Younger, soft outlines, close enough to touch him. Close enough to make everything inside me collapse. But now Mara was telling me that image wasn't what it seemed. I swallowed hard, my voice barely steady. If she's not who I think she is, then who is she? I expected her to answer immediately, but Mara's eyes dropped to her hands, her shoulders lifting with a painful breath. She looked almost afraid of the truth she carried. Finally, she looked up and met my eyes with a softness that made my heart tighten. Elise. She's not the woman he was seeing. She paused, letting the words settle, letting me feel their weight. The woman in the car is his daughter. The world went silent. I blinked, stunned, searching her face for any sign that she was mistaken. Lying? Confused? But she wasn't. Her eyes were steady, sad, honest. The cafe around us seemed to blur, as if the walls, the lights, the hum of the coffee machine, all of it, was fading behind the meaning of her words. I whispered, my voice cracking, "His daughter?" The word felt foreign in my mouth, heavy, disorienting. Mara nodded gently. "Yes, a daughter he didn't know about until a few months ago. She's 19. She paused. "Her mother contacted him right around the time he started pulling away from you." My breath hitched. Feelings collided violently inside me: shock, confusion, disbelief, a kind of grief I didn't even have a name for. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the table, trying to make the pieces fit into a picture that made sense. "He told me," Mara whispered. "He told me he felt like his whole life had been a lie. That discovering he had a daughter made him rethink everything. His past, his choices, his future. He didn't know how to tell you. He was terrified you would see him differently." I closed my eyes, my throat tightening. The silhouette in the car replayed in my mind again, the way she sat close. The sliver of her profile, the softness of her posture. I had seen youth and betrayal, but I hadn't seen the truth. "He found out he was sick," Mara continued, her voice gentle, "and then found out he had a daughter he had never met. And he didn't know how to be both things at the same time, a father and a dying man." She swallowed hard. "He was scared, and he made terrible choices because of it." Tears slid down my face before I even realized I was crying. Everything inside me felt twisted, anger tangled with empathy, betrayal twisted with heartbreak, confusion tied to a tenderness I wasn't prepared to feel. "He should have told me," I whispered, gripping the medical paper in my hand. "He should have trusted me." "I know," Mara said softly, "but he didn't know how to let you see him weak. He didn't want to break your heart, so he broke it in a different way." I covered my face with both hands, letting the weight of it all crash into me. The affair, the lies, the distance, the car, the silhouette, the illness, the daughter. It was too much, yet it explained everything I couldn't understand before. Mara reached for her purse again, but this time she didn't pull out papers. She pulled out her phone. "There's something else," she said quietly. "Something I think you need to hear. I've been debating for days whether to show you." My heart pounded, my breath uneven. "What is it?" She tapped her screen with trembling fingers, then turned the phone toward me. A video, a short one, recorded only a week ago. The thumbnail froze my blood. Him, sitting in a hospital hallway, head in his hands, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. Mara whispered, "This was the last time I saw him. He didn't know I was recording." She paused. "I think you deserve to hear what he said." When he thought no one was listening, she pressed play, and as his voice filled the cafe, shaky, broken, full of a pain I had never heard from him before, my heart felt like it cracked open all over again. But it was his final sentence, spoken almost in a whisper, that made the room spin. "Elise, if you ever hear this, I'm sorry. I left because I'm running out of time." His voice filled the small cafe like a ghost returning to a room he once belonged to. Not loud, not desperate, just defeated. A sound I had never heard from him before. A sound that didn't belong to the man who used to hold me with certainty, who used to plan our future with quiet confidence. The man on that video was someone else entirely, someone fragile, someone drowning, someone terrified. I leaned closer, my heart thundering inside my chest as the video played. The camera angle was shaky, like Mara hadn't meant to record at all, like her hands were trembling as badly then as mine were now. He sat on a hard plastic chair in a dim hallway, elbows resting on his knees, eyes staring at the floor like it was the only thing keeping him grounded. His breathing was uneven, shallow. His shoulders rose and fell with a heaviness that made my throat tighten. "I don't want to do this," he whispered in the video. "I don't want to hurt her. She's the only person who ever made me feel like I mattered." The words hit me like a wave. Mara glanced at me softly, but she didn't stop the video. I couldn't have stopped it if I tried. He lifted a hand to his face, rubbing his eyes like someone too exhausted to pretend anymore. When he breathed out, it sounded like he was breaking apart piece by piece. I don't know how to tell her I'm sick, he continued, voice cracking. She sacrifice everything. She'll lose herself taking care of me. And I can't let her do that. My eyes blurred as tears gathered and spilled down my cheeks. I pressed a hand to my mouth, trying to quiet the sob building in my chest. Every word felt like a blade, gentle, deliberate, devastating. Then he whispered something that made the air vanish from my lungs. I'm not leaving her for someone else. I am leaving her so she can have a life. And I can die without taking her heart with me. The sound that left me wasn't graceful, it wasn't quiet. It was a broken breath that shattered inside me, forcing tears to fall faster. My chest ached so deeply it felt physical, like something was ripping open behind my ribs. Mara reached across the table, her hand landing softly on mine, but I barely felt it. I was rooted to that video, to every word he said, to the pain in his voice that twisted mine into knots. I don't know how long I have, he murmured, but I know I don't want her last memories of me to be the way I'm going to become. I forced myself to keep watching, even though every part of me hurt. She deserves someone who can walk beside her, he continued, staring blankly ahead. Not someone she'll have to carry. She deserves mornings without fear, nights without hospitals. A future that isn't haunted by goodbyes. He inhaled shakily. I'm doing the only thing I can. The only thing that feels like love. Even if it looks like betrayal. My vision blurred again. My heartbeat felt like it was collapsing inside my chest. The cafe felt too small, too quiet, too fragile to hold this kind of truth. Then came his final whisper in the video, weak, trembling, but unmistakably sincere. Elise, forgive me, please. I'm not running from you, I'm running from what I'll become. The video ended there. Silence fell over the table like a blanket, suffocating the last bit of warmth in the room. I couldn't speak, couldn't move, couldn't even breathe properly. Mara lowered her phone slowly, giving me space, but the space only made the ache louder. I wiped my cheeks with the back of my hand, my fingers trembling uncontrollably. The truth, the real truth, had carved itself into me without mercy. He didn't leave because he stopped loving me. He left because he loved me too much. And that, somehow, hurt even worse. I forced myself to breathe, but each inhale burned. I whispered, barely audible, why didn't he tell me? The question wasn't for Mara, it wasn't even for myself. It was for him. For the man who had chosen silence over trust, distance over vulnerability, heartbreak over surrendering himself to my care. Mara's voice came out soft, unsure. He thought he was sparing you. I shook my head. He took away my choice. I know, she whispered. But he thought he was doing the right thing. I stood slowly, my legs numb beneath me. The cafe felt like it was swaying. But maybe that was just my heart trying to balance on truths that had shattered everything I believed. I walked to the window, needing the cold air that seeped through the glass, needing the world outside to remind me I was still here, still breathing. He's not with her? I whispered without turning around. No, Mara said behind me. He hasn't seen her in weeks. The girl in the car, that really was his daughter. He's trying to connect with her before he loses the chance. I swallowed hard. The image replayed again, the silhouette, the closeness, the way the car slowed as if teasing me with a truth I misinterpreted. I pressed my forehead gently to the cold glass. He should have trusted me, I whispered. He was afraid of being a burden, she said. Afraid of you watching him fade. A tear slid down my cheek, slow and warm. I closed my eyes and whispered softly, but I would have stayed, even if it broke me. Behind me, Mara inhaled deeply, as if gathering strength, and then she said something that made my entire body freeze. Elise, he doesn't know that you know. A pause, heavy. And he thinks he's succeeded in disappearing. I turned around slowly, my voice cracking. What do you mean, disappearing? Mara looked at me with a mix of fear and urgency, the kind that tells you the next truth is worse than the last. Elise, he's gone. He left the city yesterday. My heart stopped. She stepped closer. Her next words were barely a whisper, but they tore the ground from under me, and he doesn't want you to find him. Her words didn't hit me like a blow. They sank, slow, heavy, like something falling through deep water, impossible to catch before it disappears into darkness. He doesn't want you to find him. The sentence echoed in my mind, repeating itself as if my heart refused to understand it the first time, or the second, or the third. My lips parted, but no sound came out. My throat felt too tight for words, too tight even for breath. I stared at Mara, waiting for her to take it back, to soften it, to tell me I misunderstood. But she didn't. She just looked at me with that same mixture of sorrow and gentleness, like someone who had carried a truth too heavy for too long. "Why?" I finally whispered, the word breaking as it left my mouth. Mara's eyes softened even more. "Because he thinks disappearing is the only way you'll move on. He believes you'll heal faster if he becomes a memory instead of a responsibility." I wrapped my arms around myself, feeling the cold air seep into my bones. The weight of everything, his illness, his fear, his silence, his love twisted into absence, pressed down on me until I felt small, fragile in a way I hadn't felt in years. "He doesn't get to decide that," I whispered, though my voice trembled more than it resisted. "He doesn't get to choose how I grieve." "I know," Mara said softly, "but he believes he's protecting you." I closed my eyes, fighting back a wave of tears that threatened to break the last bit of strength inside me. Protecting me, hurting me, saving me, losing me. His love had become a maze I couldn't escape. My breath shuddered as I whispered, "Where did he go?" Mara shook her head slowly. "He didn't tell me. He only said he needed to be somewhere quiet, somewhere far enough that you wouldn't accidentally find him." My legs weakened, and I sank slowly into the chair, the cafe suddenly feeling colder, emptier, too big for the hollow ache inside me. I pressed my hand against my chest as if trying to keep my heart from splitting in two. All this time, all this pain, all the walls he built. It wasn't because he stopped loving me. It was because he loved me more than he could endure. I didn't know whether to cry or scream. I didn't know whether to run after him or let him vanish. I didn't know whether to hate him or forgive him. I just sat there, breathing through the ache, letting the truth settle into the spaces where anger and jealousy once lived. "Elise," Mara whispered. "I'm so sorry." I looked at her with eyes that felt tired in a way that sleep could never fix. "If he didn't want me to find him, then why did you come to me?" Mara hesitated, then reached into her purse again. This time she pulled out something small, wrapped carefully in a piece of tissue. She placed it gently on the table between us. "He left this in my car the last time I saw him," she said. "I don't think he meant to. I don't think he realized it fell out of his pocket. But when I found it, I knew it wasn't meant for me." My breath caught as I reached out with trembling fingers. Inside the tissue was a necklace, a simple silver chain, with a tiny pendant I recognized instantly. A small engraved compass. The one we had chosen together on a random afternoon years ago. The one he had said symbolized us. The way we always found our way back to each other. I touched it gently, my vision blurring with tears. On the back of the pendant, scratched lightly into the metal, were 4 words in his handwriting. "For when you're ready." A sob escaped me, not loud, but deep, raw, pulled from a place I didn't know existed. I held the necklace to my heart, my hands shaking around the tiny compass that suddenly felt like the heaviest object in the world. Mara's voice trembled. "I think, no matter where he went, he hopes you'll forgive him, even if you never see him again." I closed my eyes, letting the tears fall freely now. They weren't just tears of grief anymore. They were tears of love, of loss, of understanding, of something bittersweet, something I didn't have a name for but felt deeply. When I finally opened my eyes, the world outside the cafe window looked different, not less painful, but quieter, softer, like a storm after the first break of dawn. I don't know if I'll ever find him, I whispered, running my thumb over the small compass. I don't know if he wants me to. Mara nodded gently. But if you do, it will be because he left a path for you. I looked down at the compass again, feeling its cold metal warm slowly against my skin. He didn't take everything with him. He left me this. A tiny promise disguised as goodbye. A silent map disguised as loss. I stood slowly, closing my fingers around the necklace, feeling its weight settle into my palm like a heartbeat. I loved him, I whispered. I still do. Mara's eyes softened. Sometimes love doesn't end, it just changes shape. I swallowed hard, letting that truth settle. Then I slipped the necklace around my neck, feeling the clasp click into place. A quiet sound, almost too soft to hear, but somehow louder than all the chaos that had come before. The compass rested against my chest. Warm now. Steady. I took a breath. A real one. The first in a long time. And as I stepped out of the cafe into the quiet night, I whispered a promise only he would understand. I'll live, even if you can't stay. The wind carried the words away, gentle and cool. And somewhere far from here, in a place quiet enough for fear and hope to coexist, I hoped he felt them.